Hello and welcome to Korero, the big conversation table where we analyze issues across the country. Well, the state of the nation is what we're focusing today. Of course, my name is Godwin, and I won't be doing this alone. I'll be doing it with a profound barrister that will be helping us put all of these issues in perspective. Please stay with us as the conversation begins immediately after this break. You're welcome back. Well, tonight, our focus is on one of the most critical pillars of democracy, the judiciary. As the final arbiter in constitutional disputes and the guardian of the rule of law, the judiciary remains central to protecting citizens' rights, resolving electoral conflict, and sustaining public confidence in democratic institutions. Now, recent court judgments, debate over judicial independence, and the conduct of the Nigerian Bar Association elections, and growing public scrutiny of the justice system have once again placed the nation's court in the spotlight. Are our judicial institutions meeting the expectation of justice? What reforms are necessary to strengthen public trust? More so, what do recent legal developments mean for Nigerians' democratic future? Well, to help us unpack these important issues, I'm being joined by Barrister Samuel Emmanuel Memeh, who is the first and foremost, he is the Democratic Leadership Alliance National Chairman and also a respected legal practitioner with deep insight into constitutional law, judicial processes, and contemporary legal developments in Nigeria. Barrister Samuel, it's a delight to have you join me on Korero. Good evening.
Thank you so much. But first, I want to correct something. My name is not Emmanuel. Samuel Memeh.
Okay, Samuel Memeh. Okay, correction taken. Well, it's a delight to have you join us.
My pleasure.
All right, so let's even begin the conversation by first looking at the generality of our judicial system, especially under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. What do you make of the judicial system?
Well, under the current administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, we have experienced the judiciary, well, as a member of the bar, it would be so not to be fair enough for me to, bring this kind of conversation. But unfortunately, this is a very conversation that has generated so much concern, in Nigeria. But under this current administration, we have seen how the judiciary had been, weaponized, caged by the executive arm of government in one way or the other, and that is because of the interference that have practically been seen, in the system, in the polity. Well, it is quite so because of desperation on the part of the politicians.
Well, interesting. Well, critics argue that the politically sensitive judgments have failed perceptions of executive influence over the judiciary. Are these concerns supported by evidence? When you look at it, can we say right now that most of the judgments by several courts are influenced by this administration? How correct is it to say so?
So, not entirely true. Not entirely true, but there are some of the judgment that that are traceable because we have identified some courts in this country, particularly some of the federal high courts that we know the mind of the judges. Unfortunately. In this regard, and some of these judges we know, the media, have access to some of this information, but not entirely. That all politically decided cases, may have one in one way or the other into the influence. But again, when we talk about the influence is not generally something that is done by the so-called the leader of the country in the first place. Sometimes overzealous politicians, within the corridor of power, take advantage of the little position that they hold, trying to maneuver the system. And of course, the judicial officers themselves, in one way, equally make themselves available, because of enticement. And that is the reason why we must criticize judicial interference, because when there is no interest in interfering with the justice system, then in most cases, the judges will administer justice. But when there is a level of interference, influence into the administration of justice, but in this context, when judgments are made outside the context of political realm, not much public interest, is shown. But when it is, made in regard around the political setting, we begin to look into. But however it is, political actors, politicians sometimes, even in the opposition, tends to, interpret certain judgment. But to cram it up, I would say that there are certain judgments that you can see clearly that these judgments, once the federal government is interested, particularly judgment that has to do with political party interference and the leadership, and some other judgment that has to do with, ensuring that the opposition political parties and opposition politicians, we can see when they fail to obey court rulings, court orders. All these things are elements of interference. And in most cases, they fail to obey these rulings and judgments simply because they have interest. In some other cases, they tend to influence the outcome of judgments.
Well, Barrister Memeh, let's even look at the recent gift by the FCT minister to judiciary, especially to judges. Will this have any significant impact even on judgments across the country? Should Nigerians be worried by all of these gifts to the judiciary?
No, absolutely. I must commend the FCT.
Is there a constitutional provision for it before we go ahead to commend the FCT minister?
We must commend, because if you look at the constitutional provision and the level of power and grade, a federal high court judge is equivalent to at least a member of House of Assembly. And if you go to state House of Assembly or various states in this country, they made provision for accommodation provision for the serving House of Assembly members, including even local government chairmen. Then come down to the federal level.
Well, you're forgetting the part of the Constitution that also stipulates that these appointive positions have tenures.
They have tenure.
Are we not going to put that into consideration also?
No. You don't need to put it. We're talking about arms of government.
Yes.
There are three arms of government. You have the executive arm of government, the judicial arm of government, and you have the legislative arm of government. Now, all these arms of government, and that is why you see that it is very easy to penetrate the judicial arm of government, because somehow the successive government have weaponized poverty around the judiciary. If you go to most of our courts, even the federal courts, state high courts, and then the magistrate courts, some of those courts, you can't even go in there because of the condition of these courts. Then what about the welfare and the well-being of the judicial officers? They must be taken care of. So providing accommodation, standard accommodation for the judicial officers is well commendable. It has nothing to do with interference.
Well, you're saying it has nothing to do with interference, but then will it also not just oppose justice when it has to do with the confidence of the public and also the independence of the judiciary?
No, absolutely no. I do not think so, because these are rights of these judicial officers. If you, as a judge, and you are living within the environment, where the criminals and, of course,
But shouldn't the judges be fighting rather to have more independence as it stands? Since you've cited the three organs of government, the executive have its own independence. Same thing with the judiciary, with the legislature. Shouldn't the judiciary at this point be calling for more independence other than relying on the executive for these Egyptian gifts?
No, I think it is necessary for judiciary to have absolute independence, because, of course, that judiciary is the last hope of the common man. But at the same time, in this context of providing accommodation, I think it is something all the state governors must emulate, including the judges, the magistrates at the magistrate courts should be provided some level of comfort, to administer carry out their judicial functions and their official functions. Beyond providing accommodation, they should also provide conducive judicial places for them to carry out their business. So, beside that, it has nothing to do with interference. I must tell you this because when the welfare of the judicial officers had
but you agree with me that he who plays the piper dictates the tune. In this instance, can we say that the judiciary will be completely independent if the executive keep meddling in their affairs?
No, let us look at it. I started by, identifying the areas which the executive arm of government had in one way or the other interfere. Even in the media, they interfere in what the media project to the public. But for those other media who understand that they have a right to provide the right information to the general public, would endeavor to do so. There are bad eggs in every sector of this country. Don't forget that this is Nigeria. A lot has gone wrong in this country, including judiciary. The judges, the judicial officers did not come from the moon. They are Nigerians. They grew through the system. They were lawyers until they became judges. So they live within the society. Providing conducive environment for them to live is also a way to boost their morale, that it is possible not to. But while they are doing that, we should also look at the other aspect. There are judges, there are courts in this country that that these courts belongs to this and this, certain rulers in this country. So we must be very clear to that, to that essence, even at all levels. So these guys are planted in different areas. They are planted by the politicians, the political class, up to the Supreme Court.
So you're saying in most courts in Nigeria right now, the judges are planted by politicians?
Of course, because when you see certain...
Can we get an instance of a court in this regard?
I will give you an instance.
Please.
Recently, a federal high court, ordered for the registration of 5 political parties for not meeting the threshold to exist as a political party. Among those political parties, we have clear evidence. Even when the Independent National Electoral Commission submitted its affidavit, that these political parties, the regulatory body. So what is the interest of such a court to ensure that certain political parties are destabilized?
So you're saying Justice Lifu was planted by a politician?
Well,
in the Federal High Court?
It could be one of those.
No, let's get you react, because you are within the judicial space, so you understand the terrain better than some of us.
When you see the manifestation, you will begin to ask, because this is the political season. The interest of certain political powers was at the verge of, collapsing their interest, because certain powers must be protected. So I can tell you, besides I'm a lawyer, I'm also the national chairman of a political party. I'm a leader of one of the political opposition in this country. So I am not here to defend the interest of the judiciary, but I'm here to speak about what is going on in the judiciary. That some of these courts have been stationed to do the bid of the government.
Well, Barrister Memeh, just a few days ago, the internet and social media was sparked and went agog because of the recent NBA election that has brought in the Badejo Okunsoya into as the new NBA chairman with a total of 12,317 votes. But then there's another part of that conversation that says the election was marred with a lot of irregularities, a lot of technological glitch, and also some form of alleged manipulation, widespread of irregularities generally. You are a barrister before becoming a party chairman. Help us understand this election that played out even just a few days ago. And with the outcome of the election, can we take the judiciary serious as it stands?
Well, the NBA is part of the judiciary, not necessarily, the umbrella
the bench,
of the judiciary.
The
so it is an organization of lawyers, and what they did was to elect their leaders. And for me, there are a lot of complaints surrounding the procedures and the processes of the election, which, in my opinion, is quite unfortunate because we could have done better. Conducting election for less than 500,000 of members. In fact, the total number of voters were less than 50,000 voters, and we couldn't get the right system.
The figure we got said about 82,000 from the 145 branches. They have about 82,000 eligible voters. About just 30%, that's 25% voted actually. But then the figure still reads about 12,317 that went to Badejo with the outcome.
With less than 50,000.
Yeah, so because voted. I'm asking because the NBA is the breeding ground for judges. For most judges, the first lawyers before they emerge as eventually became judges. In all of this put together, fingers still point towards the direction of the judiciary. Can Nigerians take the judiciary serious as it stands right now?
I think we have no option but to take the judiciary serious as much as we can. It would be of no interest, of no one's interest to not to take judiciary serious at this time, no matter what you say. But we must critically analyze the issue. NBA election is an association election, right? And whatever happened within the association, must and should be, treated within the association. For me, as a lawyer, I'm disappointed with the manner and the outburst around the election of less than 50,000 persons that went into to vote. We couldn't even manage a technological system, to produce the leaders of the association. But that belongs to the association to deal with. I am not a contestant. Those who contested in the election may have better evidence to provide and look at how such issues can be, corrected even in the future. But that is not enough test to say that judiciary is gone. But I have said something that only very few judges we know, very few judges, and these judges, they came from every administration. You identify some of these judges who are willing tools before the government of India.
Barrister, permit me to interrupt or interject at this point. Come 2027, a lot of cases will be in court, whether we like it or yes. Lawyers will have to represent their clients, aggrieved clients, as it will be come 2027, because a lot of persons might be dissatisfied with the outcome of the election. Omoyemi Akangbe is a contestant, and he has come out publicly to say that the election was shambolic. Also, we've had Akimboro Olumiwa coming out to also fault the election, have come out to fault the entire committee. Now, these are people that are supposed to defend politicians come 2027 in competent court of law. Right now, the NBA cannot put his house in order. Should we be worried as it stands? Because Nigerians are looking up to the NBA to be able to set a standard like they've done previously. But right now, contestants are calling the election shambolic. Can this be a caricature of what to expect in 2027?
No, this is not what to be expected in 2027. But of course, we've not had free and fair elections in this country for a long time.
But the NBA have come out to say that they've enjoyed free and fair election, and they've used technology, they've been able to even evolve technologically. But then we are having technological glitch, alleged manipulations, and also widespread allegations that there have been imposition of candidates across board. But then, is this what we're going to be saying in 2027?
The NBA election, I said, as a lawyer, I am disappointed in the manner in which the election was conducted. I'm so disappointed. Unfortunately, I was able to vote in that election, but not as other persons, could. Many persons actually complained that they couldn't have access to vote. The issues of inability to vote, the network were, changed from time to time. I vote almost at the time where the election was, over. Mine was successful. My wife was not so successful because she attempted to vote many times. She couldn't vote until later on she was able to vote. So many other persons complained. There were issues of irregularities as complained. I'm not there, to see the way the election was conducted. I only voted from the comfort of my home. But the kind of complaint that I saw and the response that is, lawyers are not quick to, react to issues of that nature, particularly the NBA elections. But when you see lawyers coming up in this manner, the way they did, and particularly the contestants, you know that definitely something is wrong. It's quite unfortunate, but that is those who plan the election. If there is anything wrong about the procedure adopted in planning the election, then they should be held responsible for their failure. That is not to say that the NBA as a body has failed.
Well, conflicting court judgments have continued to trail conversations. Right now, the NBA is right now on the spotlight. Trying to even place this side by side, it tends to be that the judicial house is a bit not in order when it has to do with the bar and the bench. We've seen what played out. Even you've cited a case in Abuja Federal High Court, where we have conflicting court orders. That stemmed from one angle. Also, the other angle, the NBA lawyers are also having all of this. Does this mean that the National Judicial Council right now cannot hold a stand or take a stand in all of this wrangling? Because we've not seen discipline, we've not seen out any policy statement try to even challenge the outcome of some of these practices. Does it mean that the National Judicial Council is hands are tied at this point?
Well, I think for me, the judiciary in this country is under trial, because a lot of things had happened, over the years, particularly in the recent time, that it is enough for certain persons of Nigerians to, want to lose faith in the judiciary. But it will not be in the interest of any person or any Nigerian to lose interest in the judiciary, because that would amount to giving room and opportunity to those who are bent on destroying judiciary. And don't forget that among the judiciary, there are members of the judicial officers like those in the bar who are also politicians, and somehow they still bring in their antics into the system. But it is the responsibility of the body. And again, I would say that irrespective of the challenges that we're fixing around the judicial arm of government today, but there is a room for us to do something better, to change, carry out social orientation. The media has a lot to do in amplifying some of these issues and calling them to order. Nigerians as well should pick up too, because these guys are somehow infiltrated into the judicial arm of government, bringing all manner. There are accusations around, in every NBA elections, there are always interests from the government, because the importance of the NBA as an association. They can hold government accountable. They can hold government accountable to the essence that they can compel the government to do what they must do. So you can't take that away, that government may be interested in identifying who lead the party, so who lead the association, in order for them to dictate, how they should fight the issues affecting the country. So, but in so many ways, when you look at all of these circumstances, you agree with me that there are interests. There are interests in this election that just concluded. There could be interest in other elections, even at the state levels where we are conducting the NBA elections. There are interests. The contestants, in many cases, sometimes go to the executive arm of government to solicit for support, and they bring in all these the antics and different ways of manipulation. But we must hold our body, our various committee responsible for conducting elections, responsible. In this particular case, we are waiting for those who contested and those who feel who have come up openly to challenge the processes, verbally, to come with evidence. But we know that this election is not so transparent, because we saw a lot of complaints, a lot of irregularity. But that is not enough to say that judiciary can no longer be trusted in this country. No matter what you see, no matter how you feel it, no matter what
you said, if the judiciary cannot be trusted, but the body that is saddled with responsibility of ensuring that discipline is carried out, even the sanity within the judicial space is enforced, has not come out to clearly state all of this. Have not come out to even talk about the disciplinary measures that will be meted. on the bar, nor talk about the bench. And right now we're having all of this put together. I'm curious if the national body responsible saddled with the responsibility of carrying out disciplinary function on the judiciary is silent. Does this mean that the judiciary right now is dumb? Permit me to use that word.
No. When we talk about the issue of disciplinary actions, there are procedures. Judges, we have seen cases where judges, were suspended and in many cases were dismissed out of their job. We've seen that happen. When there is
when last did you see that happen? I'm just curious.
Well, I do not have all the information about happening in different parts of the country around this area, but we've seen cases where what I'm trying to say is that there is disciplinary procedure, to address these challenges. Just like I mentioned about the judgment of Justice Lifiu and so many other judges within the FCT that we all know that these are judges of the APC government. We don't need to hide anything about. We know what they do once a matter is before their courts, particularly matters that has to do with political cases. They are very good in giving very strange and delivering strange judgments. But whether you are comfortable with their judgment or not, it is left for the parties, to advance to the appeal stages. But before you advance to the appeal stages, they must have caused certain harms and disorganized the political system. And that is the goal. That is the aim of why they give out some of these very strange judgments. But what I'm trying to say is that in all of this, it is good for us to speak. It is good for us to challenge the system. Judiciary in Nigeria is under trial because there is a high level of infiltration into our judiciary, our judicial arm of government. And it's, of course, affecting the justice system. We will see cases where people, particularly cases of opposition politicians that are arraigned before the court of law, and despite court orders granting their release, these guys are still kept in the prison. For instance, we have so many of them, currently. But the most important thing is that the government of the day must find way, whether it is conducive or not, to obey court order, obey court judgment, and at the same time subject themselves and their decision to the justice system of Nigeria.
Well, let's talk about rule of law in the country right now. If you are to assess the state of the nation right now based on the implementation of the rule of law, in a scale of 1 to 10, where will you place Nigerian right now?
Maybe 1.
Why 1?
There is no rule of law in Nigeria.
I thought we've passed 1.
No. There is no rule of because there is no rule of law in Nigeria. That is the reason you see incessant killings in this country, banditry, Boko Haram, lack of development. Every law that has made in this country over the years is enough for us to advance beyond where we are today. There are sufficient laws. I will tell you this. For instance, now we are talking about amending the Constitution to create state policing. We have the federal policing. We know we have the Police Act. We know how the system should function. We know that there is the police force is underfunded. We know that the police force is understaffed. And we know that many police stations in this country have been destroyed and damaged from the southeast to the northern part of the country and so many parts of this country. We know the challenges. The law is there. But what would the government do? They neglect the law. And they are going after amending the Constitution. Is it easier to amend the Constitution and start all over to recruit fresh officers, or to reinforce the system, double up the number?
So you think that step is not the right step in the right direction?
It's not the right step in the right direction. And so many other. We saw the National Assembly recently saying that the federal government under the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is currently implementing 3 years budgets. And in all of them, don't forget that the appropriation law is a law. So if the government itself cannot even implement its own law that is sent to the National Assembly, can you identify any link of rule of law in this administration? So what I'm saying is, I have not seen any law that is being implemented in this country. Particularly, we saw what happened. If it was under Buhari, you could say maybe on the scale of 1 to 10, maybe 3. But we're almost implementing 0 laws in this country. Only laws that favor the interests of the ruling class.
Well, the ruling All Progressive Congress would disagree with you on this because they will tell you that they've upheld the rule of law in the country, even from when they took the oath to assume office, and they're still upholding the rule of law. And you're saying you're giving 1% in this regard.
Tell me any sector in this country that is functioning in this country. Is it the health sector? Is it the educational sector? Can you identify any Nigerian like?
But going by the components of the rule of law, the rule of impartiality.
Okay.
Looking at all of what makes up the rule of law. If we go by that narrative, have there not been fairness? The rules of impartiality has not been upheld across the country? The rules of fundamental human rights, has it not been also be seen play out in the country? I'm just trying to get perspective from you.
Well, I'm glad that you are trying to get perspective from me, but I'm equally happy that you are a Nigerian. So you already have your own perception, and those who are watching know. If you can identify, I am still grasping to find out the kind of laws that we are implementing in this country. Look at the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria today. Identify one clause that is being implemented or obeyed. Because you are talking about rule of law. Rule of law means obeying the law, implementing the laws in the interest of the public. The law says that the primary responsibility of government is to protect lives and properties. That is the #1 rule of law. Can you guarantee the life of an average Nigerian to travel through the road? So, where is the rule of law? I'm saying that there is, as far as I'm concerned, there are no rules of law in this country in terms of implementing rule of law. We have sufficient laws. We are not in any way shortage of laws in this country. So probably you can identify. I don't want to say that we are respecting 0 rule of law in this country. That is why I said at least 1. The fact that I can drive from my house to this place, maybe some level of security, but it cannot be guaranteed, essentially. So many, when the rule of law has to do with the protection of lives and property and dignity of man. So identify areas. There are so many laws establishing different agencies in this country. All of these laws were aimed to, make life comfort for the people. You have various ministries. Ministries of Agriculture is to make agricultural sector, very okay, right? Then can you guarantee farmers going to the farm?
Barrister Memeh,
Not all of you. Let's bring this conversation into practical.
Well, the ruling party will always say at this point that you are coming from the opposition angle and you are not trying to see the positive side of this administration. Is this coming from the path of opposition, where it has become like a trajectory where opposition tend to criticize the government every now and then, looking for opportunities? Is this what it is? Or you're speaking from the fact of things? Or you're speaking the position of the Democratic Leadership Alliance position, or the fact that rule of law is not working? Where does Barrister Memeh stand right now?
I'm speaking from all.
All right.
As a Nigerian, as the leader of an opposition political party, as a lawyer, and as somebody who equally have a stake in this country, that there is no implementation of the rule of law. There are laws. We are not in shortage of any laws in this country. And implementation of laws brings justice. Implementation of laws brings development. And that is why I said that implementation of the budget, for instance, is a way to say that Nigeria is administering the rule of law. Implementation of programs is a way to say you are administering the rule of law. But
our previous administration done better.
Of course. Of course. I have never imagined that a time will come where we'll have this kind of government led by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I have never imagined, and I never pray, and I never wish to experience another government in my lifetime that appears to look like the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. This is because Nigerians are living in a worse, life-threatening situation in this country. We don't even count the numbers of people that are being kidnapped. People who are relying on media houses such as these will not get the figures. But there are channels through which you can get access about things going on in this country.
You can't say that for sure that you won't get the figures. Of course.
But you don't bring out the figures.
We bring out the figures.
How many persons were kidnapped today?
Well, we'll give you the figures after the show.
I will give you the figure that I have today.
All right, please do.
Okay.
How many figures?
I should open my phone and show you.
All right, no, please, let's just go back to the conversation.
All right.
Yeah. Because when you say media houses as this don't give out the figures, you just have to put it
not just the media houses. I'm not talking about the Rapid TV. All other media houses in Nigeria do not show the figures. We are tired of counting numbers. Nigerians want to see a full implementation of the rule of law in this country under this current administration. Irrespective of the fact that I am from the opposition, we equally want to commend the government for what they are doing. You mentioned about the donation, the properties given to the judiciary. I said, this is the right step in the right direction. But when there are issues, you are giving judiciary, fantastic. But what about the general public? There's quite a lot of things going on in this country. People are complaining. The governors are saying, look, we do not have the power to control or to give instruction to the commissioner of police. That is lies. If you implement the rule of law, you can take care of it. The president is saying, I've given enough to the government.
That's captured in part 1 of Nigerian Constitution, chapter 4. One would believe that that section has clearly stated that the exclusive legislative list can only be effectively carried out by the federal government as enshrined in the Constitution, while the concurrent and the residual list can, residual, I think part 7 of the Nigerian Constitution.
Yeah, the concurrent and the residual.
So the residual, yeah.
In all of these.
But you're saying that the governor's hands are not tied in this regard. Help us understand it.
Let the governor, let any governor in this country who feel or have evidence that he has given instruction to the commissioner of police and the commissioner of police failed to act, let the governor speak up. Because they have no other excuse to give to Nigerians. All the governors today are in the ruling government. So what is the problem? Are you saying if you are having challenge of giving instructions to the commissioner of police, then report to the president if you feel that is the right way to do it? These guys had failed even in their own budget. The governors, if you go to their budgets, go and find out the budgets of most of these state governors. In Zamfara, for instance, can you see any development going on in Zamfara? But they have budget, they are collecting resources. So in Borno State, the same thing. In my state, the same thing. All over the country, these governors are collecting, they are receiving their allocations, and they are complaining. They can't even rebuild the damaged police stations. They are not reconstructing schools. They are not reconstructing hospitals. They are not building roads. Only very few roads, and they pay salary, and that is what they do. My former governor, Dr. Senator Ifeanyi Okowa, is requesting for his international passport so he could go abroad to have his medical treatments or checkup. He's a medical doctor, a 2-time governor of Delta State, a 1-time senator, a 1-time commissioner, 2 times commissioner, up to the commissioner of health, and he couldn't build an hospital that he can comfortably remain in this country. So where is the implementation of the rule of law in this country? Implementation of rule of law means that all the indices, all the rules and regulations that makes a country function, the government sit down, implement these things for the benefit of the people. In the absence of that, there is nothing like rule of law. Selective rule of law. Are you talking about rule of law by arresting people? That is not rule of law. Rule of law must be for the development and advancing the cause of the ordinary people and the Nigerians in totality.
Well, if arresting people will bring sanity to the system, you don't think that the current administration is doing the right thing? Is that what you're saying?
No. What I mean, if you, because sometimes to a layman, rule of law means arresting people who have committed offense, traffic offense, and that is what we do in this country now. I mean, we're talking about dealing with the right issues, the real issues, not by, arresting opposition or people who criticize others and all of those things. That's not what I'm talking about. That is not rule of law. That is not rule of law. Rule of law must be in the interest of the general public. That is rule of law. So in the absence of all of these things, we cannot sit down here and say there is rule of law in Nigeria. A rule of law where the president of the country is not doing enough. If he's doing enough and what he's doing is not enough to bring sanity to the country, to bring development to the country, to bring security and development to the country, so he's not carrying out any rule of law, and they still want to go in for the second tenure. Well, so where are we going to find ourselves in the coming days?
As we begin to wrap up, let's talk about your political party, the Democratic Leadership Alliance. A lot of Nigerians will be expecting outcomes, policy statements, manifestos that reflect the daily life of an average Nigerian. And of course, your party has also promised that they will do things differently. Can we trust the Democratic Leadership Alliance, the DLA, as it stands right now in the country? Or we should rather focus on other direction?
No, Nigerians don't need to focus on other direction. We are doing everything possible to let Nigerians know and to convince Nigerians. And don't forget that the DLA is a unique political party, and we got registered this year. And being the only political party that was registered and made the requirement of law, out of 171 political parties that were screened by INEC and made the requirement of law and was duly registered by the Independent National Electoral Commission. There is quite a lot we are doing internally, to strengthen internal democracy and to bring about the credible persons, to represent the party at the upcoming 2027 general election.
This was the same thing other political parties have said.
No,
and your manifesto also say the same thing, talking about rule of law and also all of these principles that you promised to effect, the changes you want to effect across the country. But then, can we trust the DLA?
That is, we should be given the opportunity. And the other political party you mentioned that came in and failed did not promise Nigeria anything. What he said, the last political party now currently said is about change. But we are saying, look, we are bringing innovation into the governance of Nigeria. We are concerned about the situation in this country, and we have laid down our step-by-step processes to address the issues of affecting us as a people, ranging from the issue of security of lives and properties, down to the educational sector, down to the health sector, and all other sectors in this country. For instance, and I will tell you this, under the administration of the DLA, there would not be nomadic movement of cattle in Nigeria. It is safe for farmers to plant their crops and have their crops harvested properly. There must be laws and policies of government to regulate the business of farming and agricultural products in this country.
Well, Barrister
among
Samuel,
other things.
Barrister Samuel, I've been signaled that the campaigns have not started. So I should not allow you to go on and on, because if we allow you, you preach the gospel of DLE. And of course, Rapid TV, at the end of the day, will have to send DLA voucher in order to be on the same page. But it's on this note, I want to say thank you so much, Barrister Samuel Memeh, for finding out time to do this with us.
Thank you so much for having me. My pleasure.
But we'll still bring you back again to talk more even on your party and some of the things that you propose to do. But today is not just for that day, it's for talking about the judiciary, of course, and you've done justice in talking about Nigerian. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
But viewers, this is how far we can go tonight on Korero. Do not forget that you can leave your thoughts, you can leave your comments on our various social media handle currently showing on your screen. And you can also download the Rapid TV app from your Android and iOS devices to keep track of our broadcast. My name is Godwin Sunday. Always remember that peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Do enjoy the rest of your night rest. Bye-bye.